I have been officially summoned to respond to this video, so let's hear what she has to say.
And today I'm speaking directly to MAGA. See you guys talking about the tragic flooding happening in the state of Texas, and I'm here to remind you, it's not just Texas. It's the tornadoes in Oklahoma and Missouri. It's the rapidly approaching hurricane season for the state of Florida. It's Asheville being left in ruins because Biden gave him FEMA relief that Trump took away. And every time I remind you guys, this is what you voted for, you want to cry. Now's not the time to talk politics. Now is exactly the time to talk politics. You just handed us, and I told you so moment. Children are suffering. Think of the children because they didn't vote, but you did. You're the same people who voted to defund every child in America's education. You're the same people who voted to rip children out of the arms of their parents and be sent to concentration camps. You're the same people who bullied an 11-year-old girl by threatening to call ICE on her parents until she committed suicide. Pushing to your Second Amendment right so you can overthrow an oppressive regime while installing one, and laughing at the libtards because we begged you to think of our innocent children being shot and murdered in school, at the mall, at parades. You're the same people who sent $675,000 to Shiloh Hendrix's GoFundMe because she called a 5-year-old child, the N-word. The same people who voted to take away food and health care from the poor children in your communities. You voted away the National Weather Association and FEMA that could have prevented the casualties and compensated the loss of property. And you think of the children. I will not think of your children. Because when you thought of mine, you actively wished evil upon them. And I don't wish evil upon children, but I damn sure won't send help to yours when you laughed at mine for being shot at school. Or other children for losing food, or their parents. A lot of y'all expect me to give a fuck about kids that you don't. If you're not thinking of how your vote affects the safety and future of your children, I'm not thinking about it. I'm trying to fix the world you ruined to save my fucking children. I expect to see every able-bodied Trump supporter out there doing search and rescue for every natural disaster that hits, sending all of their Social Security and temporary assistance for needy families to the GoFundMe to pay for funeral and home repair. That is on y'all. It's not on us. I'm not even going to send a thought or a prayer because I will not actively interrupt the wrath of God to stop your karma. He is in real time showing you that he don't fuck with y'all for using his name in vain. This isn't just what you voted for. It is undoubtedly what you deserve. Have the fucking day you voted for.
Now, before I start, I would like to say that I am, in fact, having the day that I voted for. A good one. And I did the liberty of taking some notes while I was watching her video to touch on some key points here. Let me get a sip of water first because this is about to be very long. And I'm serious, y'all. I really did take notes. Now, first of all, FEMA is insufficient and they are run by government officials too worried about politics and money than getting the job done. FEMA is accused of having political bias in the distribution of FEMA aid. FEMA is slow to respond effectively in the aftermath of disasters, leading to delays in providing aid and recovery efforts. You remember all those people who made those videos after the hurricane in North Carolina that was letting y'all know that the FEMA wasn't actually showing up to do anything? It was the locals who were showing up for the people, and other states that were driving in to bring supplies for them? Yeah. Also, there are many concerns about FEMA's spending habits and wasting of taxpayer dollars, including billions that were mismanaged during COVID. And you say that Biden sent those people money? Let's not forget about the $750 that he asked people to apply for while they had no power, no internet, while Trump actually got in his car and drove to states and partnered with people to bring supplies, and didn't do a forced photo op to make it seem like he was doing something like Kamala did. Also, I would like to say that people who work for FEMA don't even take the time to visit some of these disaster-stricken states to come up with actual plans that would be more reliable based on the state's knowledge and personal first-hand experience. So in the end, by giving it back to the states would offer faster assistance and relief if the state's elected officials aren't cruddy, and they do their due diligence of managing disaster funds better than FEMA was doing. Some of these states should always be ready to actively keep their locals prepared for things like this. It's not like no warnings were sent out. They are sent out all the time. Some people just refuse to leave and some people just can't. And in those cases, they need to make sure that they are taking the proper steps to fund and support the people who can. And the states should be ready to fix up their own states and cities that are affected by these disasters. As a matter of fact, Trump didn't take away FEMA. He was talking about it, but he ultimately decided to keep it. He even gave them funding to go help the people in Texas after seeing the aftermath. And you screamed in your video to say this is about politics, when it's not. Only a sick mind would think that when it comes to saving children in a flood. Just because Texas is a red state doesn't mean that those victims or parents voted for Trump. I live in a majority red state where everyone around me voted blue, but that is no reason to not want to help the people in your community or show up for another state if you have the means. That is called being human and trying to look out for those in your country no matter who they voted for. Oh, and the 11-year-old girl who died by suicide due to alleged bullying that still has not been proven that it was bullying, it is very sad. And I feel that her parents should do better at keeping her informed that if they are legal citizens, then they won't get deported. And I also felt that her parents should have been there for her mental health if they were facing deportation. And let's get into the schools. They shouldn't be allowing propaganda in their hallways, allowing teachers to get on social media and say that ICE is going to come snatch up kids from classrooms when that's not what they were doing. And if that little girl was bullied, then those kids and those parents need to be held accountable, especially the parents for raising little bullying asshats. I would never condone bullying, ever. But that does not make her death at the hands or fault of all MAGA. As Tom Homan said just recently, if you are not an illegal immigrant, you have nothing to worry about. So stop allowing these families to be fear-mongered by lies. Talk about innocent kids being killed in school shootings is somehow the fault of MAGA for wanting to protect their Second Amendment rights. School shootings are tragic and have a lot to do with not enough mental health for the youth. Taking away guns will never stop these crimes, because that's why the black market exists. No matter how many guns you take away, people will always find a way to obtain them and still commit crime. But when it comes to school shootings, what needs to be done is having effective school counselor and mental health assistant for those suffering internally, and disciplinary action for those kids that are doing the bullying. Also, parents and teachers need to pay close attention to this kind of behavior changes in their students and in their kids. And listen to these kids when they tell you that somebody's fucking with them. But this has nothing to do with people wanting the right to keep their guns, in case they need to protect themselves against foreign and domestic enemies, illegals and locals trying to kill them. Oh, and here's a good question. If you think Trump is who all of you say he is, then how would you ever defend yourself if the quote-unquote tyrannical government was to come to your door and enforce his quote-unquote dictatorship on you? And those people who donated to that woman who called that child the N-word are disgusting, and I don't support that. Neither does all MAGA. By the way, there are Democrats who also supported her, and not just what you think is all MAGA. Now let's get into the Department of Education. You said we voted to take education away from all the kids. The Department of Education was one big failed experiment. The Department of Education didn't exist until, I think, 1979, and before that it was handled by the states and worked a lot better. Since the DOE took over, kids are failing, test scores went down like crazy, and they began that No Child Left Behind that pushed kids to the next grade with failing scores and failing report cards. And let's not talk about how they abused spending. But yet schools still lacked equipment and supplies that they needed to help the kids and the teachers. And the teachers said that they were severely underpaid. Giving it back to the states would be the best option. By the way, no kid since has lost their education or funding. And let's stop with this we voted for children to be stripped from their parents. But we voted for them all to get deported together. Like how other countries would do if you were in their country illegally. Maybe you should take some time to go on YouTube and watch some videos about how the Mexicans are protesting in their streets because they don't even want you there. And y'all call Alligator Alcatraz the worst concentration camp. Biden had them in little tinfoil blankets on the floor. But this time around they have more funding with bunk beds and supplies. You should see some of these places in other countries, and then you would not even question it. And by the way, it's the same cry when it comes to all of you about the food stamps and the big beautiful bill, and Medicaid and the SSI. We're taking healthcare from all the kids. That's not happening. No one will lose anything besides those that are pimping the system and illegals. But the rest of you Americans, you bums and lazy motherfuckers, will have to go to work or volunteer or go to school. Contribute to society like the taxpayers that are funding your fucking food stamps. If you have a disability, your assistance and funding will not be affected. Maybe take the time to just read that part of the fucking bill if you don't read any of it at all. No one is out here wishing evil upon kids or laughing at anyone getting shot. While you guys have been saying that kids deserve to die because their parents voted for Trump. I'm not even knowing if they did. Anyway, everything you said was straight up emotions and no facts. You are the prime example of what it is to be brainwashed by propaganda and fake news. You are easily manipulated because you will never take the time to do your own research. But this video comes to an end. I rest my case. Y'all have a good night.